Hello, everyone. My name is Conrad on behalf of CameraStuff. Thank you for joining yet another episode of CameraStuff in the Limelight, where tonight we're going to talk about embracing one's photographic vision. Now, what is that exactly? Pretty certain in tonight's chat, we're going to jump into all of the nitty-gritties and all of the details, which I think ought to be a hot topic, a more discussed thing in today's South African photographic industry. I think maybe we are a little bit too gear obsessed and maybe should be a bit more vision obsessed, edging a pathway forward, just to find your feet in the industry and to announce yourself as an individual. So we are joined by a couple of powerhouses in the photographic industry, namely Grethe and Meghan. I'll pop them in a wee moment. But I'm going to do something for the first time, just for you to gain a bit of insight as to what tonight's chat is going to be about. So I'm going to read out the questions I'm going to ask tonight to our guests. So we may not cover all of these questions, but it may also give you an opportunity to ponder these questions as well. And when the questions are asked, you can put in your insights in the comment section as well, which, by the way, you're welcome to do. If you have a question or a comment, if you want to provide a bit of insight, do get your fingers busy, drop those comments in the comment section, and we'll tackle them as we prod along. So let me read out the questions just to get a bit of insight as to what we're going to talk about. So I'm just reading off a screen here, so I'm not making eye contact. So question number one. How do you define vision in the context of photography, and what are the key elements to contribute to a photographer's vision? Question number two, can you share a memorable experience where your photographic vision led to an unexpected discovery or connection, either personally or professionally? Can you discuss the importance of studying the work of other photographers in discovering your own style, and how to avoid simply copying other people's work? How does personal identity and life experience influence one's photographic style and vision? Can you describe a specific photo project or series of photos where your vision was particularly clear, and how did you develop and communicate that vision to others? What role does intuition play in shaping your photographic vision, and how do you cultivate and trust your instincts as a photographer? How do you handle creative blocks or periods of self-doubt, low confidence when it comes to refining your photographic vision and style? Here's an important one. How much does light, quote unquote light, the particular study of light, play a role in creating your style? And the last couple of questions, in a world saturated with images, how do you maintain authenticity, originality in your photographic work while still staying true to your vision and your style? And just to close things off, can you share any tips or exercises for photographers who are struggling to articulate their vision or define their style? All right, so we're going to elaborate on all of these points, and if you are joining, you're more than welcome to join the conversation as well. So as mentioned, we are going to be joined by Meghan and Grethe. I'm just going to brag a little bit. I stole a couple of photos off their websites, and this is Grethe in particular, very talented photographer. A couple of her photos, and also of Meghan. This is a couple of Meghan's photos. Very good. And also, as a host, I'm going to join the conversation as well. So here you can see what I've been up to, some of my own personal journey as well. All right. So now that you know what our guests are capable of, let's get our guests involved, shall we? Plop, plop.
Well, hi there.
Hello, Meghan and Grethe. Hello, Meghan. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, and you?
Very, very well, thank you. Happy to be here.
Hell yeah.
Very, very good. All right, so I think as a means of organizing today's chat, to avoid a bit of overlap and talking over one another, also at the same time trying to maintain a organic conversation, I'm going to ask people to answer one by one. But if you want to jump in at any point, by all means, you're welcome to do so. So now that we have you on screen, let's talk about vision. How would you define that in the context of photography? So when people talk about vision, style, branding, whatever, in your personal experience, in your personal words, Meghan, let's start off with you. How would you define vision?
So for me, vision would be how you see the world around you, how you see a specific shoot, but also how you see kind of adding up the elements that are in front of you to create an image. It's also having an understanding of what you're photographing. So I'm specifically referring to, say, wildlife or referring to motorsport or aviation, understanding what you're shooting, understanding the elements that are going to add to your image. But then it's also about knowing your goal. So knowing what you plan or what you want to achieve from, if you're doing a photo shoot, if you're going out and just having a stroll, doing street photography, all of those factors come into play. And then also knowing what gear kind of you're going to need to produce that vision or produce that goal. So all of those aspects kind of come into that. If you want to show my first image, please.
I shall do that. So you can continue talking. Let me find that.
There we go. So basically, vision-wise, so this was during my travels recently or while embarking to the ship, and street photography. But this was kind of a situation where I got to the bridge, got to see that it was dark, got to see the red buses everywhere, and kind of added those dynamics together to create something that for me was a little bit different. I don't really care that the shot's been done 6 million times. For me, it was producing something that is different. So yeah, that's pretty much what vision is to me. It's about seeing what's around you, seeing all of those elements, and then pulling them together to create an incredible photo.
All right. So if you don't mind me asking, as far as your personal journey has been concerned, how long did it take you to kind of put the puzzle pieces together? And are you still on that pursuit to gain more knowledge and more experience?
Absolutely. I think as a photographer, you actually never close that door to learning and experiencing a lot more things. So I picked up my first camera in 2012, and it's taken me on this journey that I could never have ever anticipated. From shooting motorsport professionally to then shooting a lot more wildlife, shooting aviation, to now teaching, and to, like I said, I've just come off of a 6-month contract on a ship. You know, those aspects, when you pick up your first camera, you're like, oh, this could be cool. You never, ever expect that it would turn into such a journey. And all of those aspects have made me the photographer who I am today. All of the negative, the positives, all of the experiences, the shoots where I've walked off and gone, oh my word, I created the most rubbish photos. The shoots where gear is broken, or you know, all of those aspects make you who you are as a photographer, and they add to your vision.
100%. Well, we're probably going to talk about all of those specifics as we prod along, but let's get Grethe into the conversation. How would you define vision as far as photography is concerned?
So I would say I could kind of encapsulate it in 2 words, which is creativity and enthusiasm. So one of these things that I always tell photographers, so like especially beginner photographers, is that it's very important that, and we will touch on this later, it's very important to look for inspirations outside of other photographers' work. Because at the end of the day, what creates vision and what, you know, drives your work is you looking inwards towards the things in life that inspires you. And if you take those things, you break them down into colors, shapes, emotions, atmospheres, and build your shoot concepts for your personal work around things that excite you and make you who you are. Those are the things that end up making your work stand out, because it literally just shows the world who you are as an artist and as a photographer.
All right. And with your personal journey, how long did it take you to define your vision? Or are you still on an ongoing process as well?
Look, it's always an ongoing process, but to be honest, and again, it's something I'll touch on later, it is something that's been there since the very beginning, and it's true for every single photographer. It's always been there.
The reason I made that last follow-up question is because I think it is important to tell people that one's personal journey, it doesn't happen overnight. So you can't just force a 10-year plan or a 5-year plan and kind of force yourself along this avenue, this pathway going forward. It is a journey of self-discovery, and this is going to happen in bits and pieces over time. So even if you think that you don't have your orientation, you know, your goals in mind, or whatever your goals are not manifesting in front of you, don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
It is an experience going forward, and all of these things will fall into place.
Yeah.
The more you pursue your knowledge, or pursue your creativity, and also just by integrating yourself into the world of photography. As long as you keep moving forward, I think it is a line from Lord of the Rings. I'm paraphrasing here. the winds may sweep you off in whatever direction on your journey, but as long as you put one foot in front of the other, you're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it right there. I mean, I think,
So, yes, go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, no, I just think you touched on something really important when you said that, a lot of people look, especially, and I know I was one of those photographers when I started out looking at work that others did 10 years into their photographic journey, comparing myself to that and comparing my work to that and feeling not only inadequate and feeling like I would never get there, but not realizing that the level of work I'm seeing in front of me is the culmination of experiences and practice and just going through it for 10 plus years. And I mean, I've been shooting, this year it'll be 18 years, and professionally it'll be 10 years. So it's a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of trial and error and all kinds of blood, sweat, and tears and lack of things that went into that.
Describes it perfectly.
Yeah, so if I can describe one's vision, I think it is a two-way street where it's about nurturing yourself and nurturing the world around you. So taking care of yourself and taking care of others around you. So I want to split it up into three parts, if I may. So first important topic would be that of knowledge. So nurture your knowledge pool over time. This is where getting into topics and subjects, your classic composition and color theory, light and shadow, understanding the principles of photography will carry you a long way going forward. Understanding all of these topics, some people may describe it as the quote-unquote basics of photography, but these things can get incredibly complex and complicated. So even if you have 20, 30 years of photographic experience, never stop learning the principles of photography.
Never,
They
ever.
do provide the foundation of all things that you can build on top of. So so build that knowledge pool over time, and that will definitely carry you forward in a great deal. The second point I want to bring up is that of empathy. So we are here telling stories, and if you can put yourself into the shoes of what you're taking photos of, understanding that from a personal angle as well will also just carry your work in a very, very good way. There is a thing in business marketing. It is taught that you shouldn't see yourself as a product or a service. You should see yourself as a problem solver. So ponder what the problems may be, and obviously from there figure out what the solutions may be. And I think that's interesting to think of as a photographer as well. Are you solving problems, and do you have experience of that problem as well? So if you're taking photos of people, do they have low confidence? Do they not see themselves in a good light? Are they struggling with something? And having that empathy tool will just help you to create stories that are genuine and authentic. And I think always down the pipeline, that is something that people do gravitate towards. It is genuineness and authenticity. This entirely faking it until you make it, you're going to get caught off sides at some point.
Yeah, totally.
The world needs a lot more authenticity.
And I think individuality is also a thing here. When telling a story, as I said, it's a two-way street. You matter. Like what you have to say about the world, how you see the world, how you interpret things. Don't be afraid of joining the conversation and expressing yourself. So a good exercise, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later as well. Put all of your interest in a blender, be it music, movies, books. Just find common threads, find common themes or motifs between all of these different things. And you might just find that one thing that defines you, and it's something that can be integrated into your personal work as well. So with all of these things in mind, also including everything that you have said, both of you have said, it's all about putting the puzzle pieces together. So here, introspection is necessary, mindfulness is necessary. Make sure that you are learning, that you are aware of things, and make sure that you're having these conversations with yourself. I think be interested in things, be interested in people, and at the same time,
That's it.
nurture yourself as well going forward.
Yes, that's it.
All right. So on that point, is there anything that you may want to add? Like, are we on the same page? I think so.
I think so, yeah. I think you mentioned empathy, which was a very, very good point to make, because I think us as artists and photographers even more so, we have a responsibility towards not only the world, but towards the art as well, in order to honor it in the best way that we possibly can. Because always, treating your subject matter, whatever it is, with honor in whichever way you feel that is important. I think a lot of photographers need to bear that in mind, no matter what you shoot, whether you are shooting for a client to sell handbags or whether you are doing street photography. There's always something you have to keep in mind, to honor the subject matter and to have visual literacy and just
Yes.
generally understand, the context of what you're shooting in is incredibly important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think as a creative person, it's both a blessing and a curse to be interested in a lot
Mhm.
of things. Like you can overwhelm yourself very, very quickly.
Yes.
But I think that is something that sets us apart as creatives. Like we want to
Uh-huh.
push the boundaries of what is familiar. There's also a point
Mm.
I actually forgot to mention. Something I would applaud photographers to do when building empathy is to shoot outside of your comfort zone. So shoot with
Mhm.
people that you normally don't take photos of, shoot in different environments, try different techniques, different camera gear,
Mm.
etc. Get yourself out of that comfort zone, that familiar
Yeah.
zone. Because
Yeah.
if you trap yourself in that familiar zone, it does breed complacency, and complacency is the death of all things, especially as a creative person. So
Yes,
be
totally.
interested in things. And I think
Mhm.
also get outside of photography as well. So I'm a big fan. Now, I won't claim to be an expert, but I do like psychiatry. I like psychoanalytics. I like
Mm.
storytelling. I like to think of myself as a bit of a movie critic, but obviously with that, I need to understand storytelling and how to build characters and
Yeah.
how to do
Yeah.
all of these
Mm.
things. So jumping outside of the world of photography will just help you to clarify things within the world of photography. These things do bounce off one another. They do complement one another. So be interested in things. I think that's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
I think also sometimes just being present. So sometimes also just
Yes.
putting the camera down. I mean, like, so when I was traveling, it would be a case of always wanting to take the camera with, especially on the locations that we were only going to once. But there were one or two times where I was like, I don't want to take my camera with. I want to just be present. I want to just
Mm.
experience what I'm seeing,
Mm.
experience where I am. And I think as photographers, we don't do that nearly enough. We're always obsessed with getting the right photo, but we're not so much present in that moment.
Yeah, and
100%.
as you've mentioned, just finding creative outlets other than just holding the camera in your
Yeah.
hand,
Mm.
that's been something that's been very important for me the past year and a half. Just taking up a hobby, even though it's still creative. I play saxophone. Even though it's still creative, it's just, something that it does not revolve around taking photos in any way.
Mm.
So it really mitigates, it kind of fires up your creative energy in a different way, and it mitigates that,
Yeah.
that um trying to find the word, that complete like compulsion for you
Mm.
to have your camera with you at all times, and that the only way that you can be creative is with a camera. So having a creative hobby, having an outlet that is absolutely nothing to do with it, is really valuable.
Yeah.
100%. All right. So we have a huge audience watching. Well, thank you very much for joining tonight, guys. But I don't see any comments. So I think to get the chat going, if you're watching, do introduce yourself. Tell me where you're from, and we'll do a bit of a shout out from our end. And as you are doing that, here with my following question: do you have an experience? Let me just find that question. Can you share a memorable experience where your photographic vision led to unexpected discoveries about yourself, connections, be it personally or professionally? So let's start off with Greta. I'm just flipping a coin in my mind, and I'm picking one of the two. So I did ask you to share a photo. So as you're talking, let me just quickly find that photo. But yeah, you can
Yes, you
pretty
know
much
which
begin when you're
one.
ready.
You know
Yeah.
which one I spoke about, yes. So the photo that Conrad is going to show is one that I did 10 years ago. There it is. It is one of the very first shoots that I did that essentially, like in very like heavy air quotes, launched my professional career in 2014. And what this shoot did for me, aside from learning how to create on the scale that I wanted to, it was crucial in teaching me how to work with a full team and to see the value in having collaborators to help tell a story. So basically, prior to that, I did a lot of solo work where I attempted to do everything myself with a model, maybe a makeup artist. And I mean, while I was excited about the photos that I created then, it still didn't really yield the results that I were heading towards. So what I learned out of this is that it's valuable to hone your skill with a variety of situations, whether you have a massive crew working with you, or if you're just doing something small, like on a lazy Sunday afternoon, like you called a friend over. Like, just learning how to navigate those different kind of situations are absolutely valuable skills. And 2 years ago, the makeup artist, I don't know if you can find the photo, but 2 years ago, the makeup artist and I, from this shoot, we reimagined the story of this shoot with a different team, like a different stylist, different models, different location. And it was really intriguing to see the evolution, not only in my own work, but also just how art has a mind of its own, and it just keeps taking you from one place to the next.
100%. All right. Megan, which photo was it that you wanted to share with us? So
The
you guys
second
gave us a
one.
lot of photos, so people can also see in the meantime all of the
Yeah.
amazing work what you can get up to. But I'm going.
There we go. That one. Wait. There we go. That one.
All right.
So this photo is of a South African opera singer. His name is Jonathan Ruxmith. And the first time that I saw Jonathan perform was when he was Phantom in Phantom of the Opera, which was in 2012. So it was just as I had started my photographic career, and I'm utterly obsessed with Phantom of the Opera. It's my favorite movie. It's my favorite soundtrack. It is just absolutely phenomenal. So I sat through the entire performance kind of bawling my eyes out because I was just so moved by how incredible it was. And there was kind of this moment where I was like, you know what, I'm going to photograph this dude one day. I really, really wanted to. Followed his career for the last 10 years. And we've been to a fair amount of his shows because he's just a phenomenal performer. So one day I got the courage and I went, you know what, I have nothing to lose. And that's been pretty much my entire viewpoint through my career. And I sent him a message on Instagram and I was like, hey, this is who I am. Here's my website. I'd like to do a photo shoot with you. And he replied. I never expected he would reply, but he replied. We had coffee. We then chatted about a shoot. We did an outdoor shoot before this. And then he asked me to come to Monty to take photos here. So while I was taking these photos, there was kind of this moment or this realization that that youngster 10 years ago would have been like, oh my word, you're literally photographing the person that you wanted to in the exact environment or setting that you could never have imagined. So it was just this kind of milestone where I'm like, dang, okay, taking the chance or taking the risk of sending somebody a message or taking a risk kind of paid off, but also just having the confidence to take the photos, having the confidence to put that work out there. That was it for me. It was just this moment where I was like, dang, okay, wow, this is my work.
Very important as well. Something you mentioned is that's really helped me is to have a bucket list of shoots you want to do, of people you want to work with, concepts. Have yourself a bucket list because you will find throughout your career that you end up ticking them off one by one by one. And that's very gratifying and very satisfying to be able to do.
But again, only if you actively take the step to tick.
Yes, definitely.
Make the jump, even though it's damn scary at times.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's an exercise I did, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But when creating a bucket list, also create a list of whys. Like, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to take photos of this person? Why do you want to take photos at this location? Just by understanding the why question will just help you to conceptualize the reason why you're doing it. And it also help you out in terms of technique and visual literacy, putting all of the puzzle pieces together. So don't just, do something for the sake of doing it. Like, understand the reasons behind everything that you want to get yourself involved in. Just a bit of introspection and mindfulness around these topics to carry you a long way.
Yes.
So, Greta, looking back, you made mention before the chat that this photo that you just described very eloquently, that you would probably make some changes to it. So what changes would you apply to that photo? And Megan, I'm going to ask you the same question. So I'm going to give you a moment to prepare. But Grete, let me just find that photo again. But in the meantime, you
Yes.
can have a chat to us.
Yeah, I think conceptually there's not a lot that I'd like to change about it, because the story of this photo, which is kind of a recurring theme in my work, is where the story kind of wrote itself. We had, the makeup artist and I had this idea that we just wanted to do the Shakespearean, fairies in the forest kind of thing. And we had a stylist that came on board and put everything together. But if I look at this, if there's one thing specifically that I'd love to change about this photo, it's absolutely the color grading. Because color grading is something that I have spent a lot of time studying through film and, working with, generally just other kind of media, and trying to learn how to apply it in a way that makes sense for the work that I'm doing, how to apply it creatively and intentionally for the specific photo that I'm working on. And I feel with this one, I feel it was, number one, the blue shadows was very much a sign of the times. So that's also where you have to be mindful of something that's trendy, and whether, the split toning, that was a big thing that, like, in 2014. So that's why I genuinely think, that is the only thing I'd like to change, is just make it a little bit more timeless is not the right word I'm looking for, but just apply something, re-edit it, and apply like just a look so it just doesn't look dated. But overall, of all of my older work, this is one of the shoots that I keep coming back to, and I'm still extremely proud of it, because there's so much work that went into it, from planning through to execution, having such a fun time with people on set that day, making sure we had a location, making sure we could source the garments, because it's one of these shoots where if we didn't have the right garments, if we didn't have the right makeup artists, it just would have completely fallen apart. And just seeing what I created at that point in my career, and this is what I created, was quite a little bit of a feather in my cap, if I may say so myself.
100%. You should absolutely feel proud of this photo. A word you mentioned was that of intention, and that's also one of the cornerstones in building a vision as well, being deliberate. And this is something Meghan spoke about her photo as well, just making the jump and being very deliberate with your intentions and with what you want. Taking the plunge into the deep end. It is very scary, but these are the things that do refine us as creative people, even just as people, just to put it bluntly, approaching life with a bit of intent and deliberation, making the plunge, as I said, will definitely take you a far way.
100%.
Right. Meghan, is there something that you would change about your photo?
So I was trying to think, I was like, oh my gosh. Firstly, I would have moved my light stand, because the amount of editing that it took to get my light stand and softbox out of the photo was insane. Absolutely insane. That's also why I gave it a lot of a darker finish, because it's not perfect. It's far from perfect. But I had this massive light stand because I've got a boom stand. And it was pretty much key in the photo. So would have definitely tried to get that out of the photo. And then just better lighting. He's got quite a bit of a hot spot on his forehead. Probably would have added a bit of a side light to the photo as well. So just, for me, better lighting. And that's, again, where that whole growth thing comes in. Greta said something that was very important, is the fact that even if you feel like you could have improved it, you're still proud of your work. That is a key factor of being a photographer. There are moments, like I said earlier, you are going to walk out of a shoot and be like, wow, that was crap. But then if you do get a photo that you've worked towards, be proud of it, even if you can change and even if you can grow it.
100%.
So I think that's what I would have changed.
Something I've there's something I've also learned is that, don't cringe at your own work. I know it's very easy to look at your old work and cringe, but it's very important, I have found, looking at the things that I've created, even last year, 2 years ago, but you need to honor the person and the artist you were at the time, because that person did the work for you to be where you are today.
Mm.
So I look at my very first work, and I mean, I'll speak about it a bit later as well, but I see the traces of, the beginning, the very little beginning seeds of, where my work is today. I see in some of my very first shoots. So
Mm.
that's what I'm saying. You can't look at your old work, or try not to look at your old work and have any regrets
Yeah.
at what you created, because that is absolutely, I mean, look, we're always going to look at it and go, listen, I wish I could have done this differently. And that's fine. That's natural. But feeling bad about what you did is, I think, in my opinion, and to me personally, it's a bit counterproductive. But always dissecting your work and looking at it and say, okay, listen, next time in the same setup, I can do this differently. Learning from it is one thing, but don't hate on it.
It's all part of the growth thing. I
Yeah,
mean, we all kind of
absolutely.
grow as we change. You mentioned the split toning thing. We all kind of go through these phases
Mhm.
as the industry changes as well.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like, yeah, we need to appreciate ourselves a heck of a lot more.
100%. I think that kind of leads me to my turn on topic as
Yeah.
well. So I
Yes.
don't have a photo to share. Unfortunately, because of the nature of how things evolved, I'm not allowed to mention names or share the photo whatsoever, but I can provide the story to you. So kind of as a backstory as well, I was a bit of a late bloomer in life. As far as life in general was concerned, only really got my ducks in a row in my mid-20s, thereabouts, for a variety of reasons. We're not going to get into it, but I always felt myself kind of lagging behind, needing to play catch up, needing to make a statement. And with that, there was a neediness to impress. So I wanted to impress people and make a statement, kind of to announce myself. But I think with that, there was resentment towards myself because I've, quote unquote, wasted all of these years. All my friends have graduated from college, started families, started their careers. Here I am just on square one, right? And there was a lot of insecurity there as well. And with that statement that I wanted to make, the battleground I chose was that of, quote unquote, technical photography or creative photography, right? So if I can sound smart and if my results look smart, that's the statement that I was making. But I think looking back, I've kind of used that as a shield to defend myself. So with that process, I couldn't quite refine who I was as a person. I was trying to be someone else. I was trying to, copy other people. I was trying to be technical. I was trying to be creative. All of that was just a shield, just to protect the soft, juicy, person behind the shield. But it was one day that a friend dropped a comment in my DMs in my Facebook. He said, Conrad, let me have a conversation with you. He said, you obviously know yourself, know your way around a studio light, but I don't see you in your photos. I don't see Conrad in your photos. I don't see the essence of you in your photos. And he went on by saying that this is no fault of the models, but the models looked bored and uninterested. That was due to my introverted, quiet nature. So I wasn't having conversations with people. I wasn't directing people whatsoever. So it was, I might as well have taken photos of mannequins, which is ironic because I do have a lot of photos of mannequins and trying to practice lighting. But with criticism like that, looking back, that was probably the best criticism that I've ever received. But almost, I think all photographers go through this where you just hate all of your work. You want to delete everything and kind of want to reinvent yourself, start on square one. And so an exercise I gave myself for the next photo shoot, I'm not going to be creative. I'm not going to be technical. I'm just going to have a conversation with the guy, allowing him to project his personality on the photos, just have a fun time, make it fun, make it vibrant, join the conversation, talk about our interests, just a fun, casual little moment with camera in hand. And I think I was quite successful at doing it. The photos are actually something that I'm quite proud of, and unfortunately I can't share it. I won't talk about that. But something I discovered, this was the discovery that I had. When I uploaded the photos onto my laptop, I saw I was being creative. I was being technical. The lighting was quite intricate and quite complex. I did that by second nature, as if my body took over and my mind took over. And the things that I hated about myself, I realized I'm not going to use that as a shield anymore. This is now part of my nature. This is who I am. And it may not be the best way of phrasing it, but instead of using it as a shield, I'm going to use it as a weapon now. So I'm going to use it as a weapon to nurture myself and to nurture the world around me. So it just was a case of not regretting things anymore, not putting all of this anxiety on me to impress other people. The competition I have in life is with myself. And it should be a healthy competition where you do want to grow. We spoke about, things that would you change about your old photos. And Greta, you put it very eloquently. It is the artist back in the day, 10 years ago. You should take care of that person as well. And I think
Yes.
just to round things up a little bit, I did things the right way, but my motivations were whack. My motivations were in the wrong place. I wanted to impress people. Now it's just simply a case of aligning my motivations along the right path. And from there, I think really my photography flourished in keeping that creative side to me, that complex side to me, but doing it for the right reasons.
100%.
Absolutely. The whole trying to impress everybody is a big factor. I mean, we all want to be that photographer that everybody goes to or follows on social media. But I think sometimes while trying to do that, we risk the fact, or we risk losing ourselves.
Which is the point I brought up right at the beginning. Individuality, you as a person, is something that you should take care of. And from square one, if you're picking up a camera for the first time, do take care of yourself, nurture yourself in relation to the world around you, but take that neediness to impress people, wanting to brag, wanting to be in competition, wanting to prove a point. Like, just take that out of the equation. We're all here to take care of one another, including ourselves. And I think that is art in a nutshell. It is about expressing yourself. It is about, putting your feelings, putting your opinions out there, and just to create a dialogue with people. So we should all just hold hands in kumbaya. Obviously, we're going to fight about certain topics, but it's all about cultivating the industry and making sure that all of us are being taken care of.
Building each other up.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
So I think that leads us to our next question. So on topic, can you discuss the importance of studying the work, just photography in general, but also specifically the work of other photographers in discovering your own style, but also at the same time, how do you avoid plagiarism? How do you avoid copying people's work? So Meghan, it's your turn to go first.
All right. I'm kind of laughing because a few minutes ago there was a massive tremor in the West End. So my nerves are like, what was that? Anyway.
Okay, then.
I was quite surprised I managed to keep a straight face. It was a decent one. I was like, dang. All right.
Wild.
Yeah, the West End is wild. Well, so, I mean, like I said earlier, with having access to the internet, with having access to Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, we're constantly influenced by other people's work, even if we don't realize it. Pretty much every time that we shoot, we've probably got some concept or some element that we saw from somebody's shoot that they did, or a picture that we saw, or something that we read, or everything has the capability of influencing us. But I think the key is to take elements from it and to adapt it to who you are, to adapt it to what you want to represent, your brand, your images. But I think it takes time. Like we were speaking about our photographer 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was obsessed with motorsport. That was my world. That was everything. And it was all about trying to push harder, trying to get better motorsport images. Now it's about so much more. But it takes time to discover your style. And like I said, it's constantly adapting, constantly using what's around you, using what your experiences, and using what you see to create an authentic you. It's about aiming to make sure that your work is constantly unique. You spoke about challenging yourself. You spoke about, you're constantly trying to show off for others. But what about showing off for yourself? Constantly producing work that you can go, dang, okay, this is how I can prove better, or this is how I can shoot better. Then it's also, for me, it's about being aware of what's out there, taking what you can from it. So, I mean, there's so many photographers that I follow on Instagram that are at different stages of their careers, that they're inspirational. What they're producing is phenomenal. Grethe, what you spoke about earlier, about the fact that we look at photographers who have been doing this for 10, 20 years, 30 years, and we expect to be where they are now. that is a bad thing, but it's also a good thing in the sense that it gives us something to grow towards.
Mm.
And then in
Yeah,
terms
definitely.
of making sure that we don't change it, or what was the question again? We don't just copy
No.
it. It's just about being as authentic as you possibly can. So taking what you want from the shoot, learning from the negatives that you don't like from it, but then always adding that little bit of you to those images.
Mm. Mhm.
Greta, passing the mic to you.
So, as I've previously mentioned, I personally am not a fan of looking to the work of others as inspiration. Like, when I put together a shoot, so either for a portfolio or for a client, at the end of the day, you kind of have to let everyone do their job. Now, of course, for me, working in fashion, where there's always a stylist and a makeup artist and a model and a whole crew helping me, it's obviously a lot easier to do this. But you need to realize where your strengths are and let people do what they're good at. So for me, I personally like to focus purely on the photographic aspect of the story to make sure that it matches the final vision of the team, which for me personally, I can't achieve that looking at other people's work. However, where it does help me is it's when investigating lighting techniques, so I can discuss with and provide examples to the team of where I'm going and what they can hope to expect from the final product. Because a lot of people are a lot more, everyone for that matter, excuse me, people in our industry and the people you work with are visual. So sometimes it's a lot easier to just have an example. Sometimes I even use my own work and use a previous shoot and say, listen, this is the kind of lighting you can expect. This is what we're looking at for posing. This is, combining this type of garment with this type of model and this kind of lighting. This is what you can expect. Is this what you want? That type of thing. So my answer is a little bit more towards the practical end of things, but that is generally how I approach it. But looking at other people's work, to me, and Megan did mention it, and she's very spot on with that, is that all work is derivative. Whether you know this or not, there's always going to be something in your head from someone else, something you've seen before. But
Absolutely.
I can't remember who said this, but I read it in a forum once, and if this is your quote, I carry it with me forever, is that there's no such thing as an original idea, only your interpretation of it that makes it original. And that's something that I actually carry with me. So something I personally do to avoid copying other people's work, if someone brings me a concept, and I actually spoke about this to my sister the other day, she's in crafting and she's amazing. And I told her that if you take something even very simple, like a very simple everyday item, and as I said, she creates with her hands, she crochets. And I told her that if you can take something and try to do it your way, in the sense of what will people not expect? So shoot something, add a little way, that's what I always try to do is, for instance, the little black dress kind of vibe. Like, how can I shoot that in an environment that's different? That's not, let's say, on a red carpet, like that kind of thing. It's just an example that just flew into my head. It's probably thanks to the Met Gala last night. But it's just that whole thing, like trying to figure out like how you can take something that people have seen before and how can you put a spin on it that makes it interesting to look at.
100%. You mentioned about there not being any original ideas anymore. I can't remember which Greek philosopher said it, but he was referring to the Greek tragedies, the Greek stories. He said there are basically 7 stories that you can have, but you can retell it a gazillion times over. I think that
Exactly.
kind of applies to photography as well. As bare bone concepts are concerned, it has been done a gazillion times. But there is your own interpretation of it, and also your personal experience, your personal story, and also the subject story as
Exactly.
well, which you can just add your own spin on. And also when
Yeah.
studying the work of others, I think that is important, just to kind of study the masters, don't
Yeah,
shy away from
totally.
that whatsoever. And also divide your questions into 2 main categories. It's the how question and the why question. So how was
Yes.
this achieved? I think people tend to ask that over and over again, like what were your settings, what light did you use,
Yeah.
what backdrop, pertaining to a lot of the practical, technical aspects of it. But for why question, I don't think is often asked. It should probably be asked a lot more often. So this is where
Yeah.
visual literacy comes into its role again. Understanding composition, understanding color theory, understanding all of this fun stuff will just help you to unpackage the photo from a different angle. And from there, understanding those elements, all of those building blocks will just help you
Yeah.
to put together your own stories as well. So people often ask, what is a great photo? And my answer to that is, you know it when you see it. But I think when you see a photo like that, actually spend the time and unpackage why you like this photo, like unpackage all of the details, all of build your visual literacy to a point where you can understand a photo inside and out. This is where studying someone else's work comes important.
Image
So it's not about
analysis.
copying this. Yeah, so it's analysis, yes, 100%. So it's not about copying someone. It's just about understanding what qualifies as a good photo, why it resonates with you, why it gives you all of the happy feelings inside. So just understanding the visual literacy behind it and just unpackaging it in a way that makes sense. And with all of those building blocks, as I said, you can just build your own stuff together.
Yeah, and also don't get discouraged by social media because yes, there are a tsunami of imagery outside that you're bombarded with every single day. But that doesn't mean that there's no more stories to tell. There's always a story to tell every single time.
100%.
There was a composer that said, and this may be very technical, so my friends who do not understand music, C major is the open scale on the piano, all the white notes. And it's many musicians are like, it's the easy one, which isn't really true. But there's a composer that said there's so much more fine music that can still be written in C major. And it's the same for photography. There's so many great photos that can still be taken, just telling a new story. And there's always a new story to tell.
But it's also your story. That's the thing as well.
Yes.
So even if the photo has been taken by 6 million photographers, it's your story and it's your take on that story.
100%.
So just a question of creativity. I've always been one to say that creativity is about using as very little as possible and doing magic with it. I think people kind of overload themselves in terms of techniques and lighting and props. They think the more stuff that you add to the equation, the more creative it is. But just to your point, Greta, about creativity, the C major scale, there's a lot to be said about that. So just by fine-tuning things, keeping things simple as well, will just help you to refine your creativity and making sense of things as well. So there's a thing in storytelling known as Kishoff's rifle. So this actually comes from old theater stage productions. So if you see a rifle on stage, it has to be fired at some point. So if it's not fired, it has no business being on a stage. So that's always how I think about creativity. Don't just add things for the sake of it. Don't just, dump a bunch of jewelry, a bunch of props, all of these different things to the photo just for the sake of it. Make sense of it. And everything leads into another. It's the old song, the hip bone is connected to the thigh bone is connected to the knee bone. So it's all about making sense of everything and creating this thread where everything makes sense in combination with one another. As soon as you overload too many things, it ends up being contrived, nonsensical, and distracting as well.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you're me and you are, what I like to call myself, a more is more photographer.
But again, that's your style. That's what everybody can relate to with your work. And you do it phenomenally well.
Uh-huh.
Now, it's odd that you say that, but I never really gathered that from your work. The idea of overloading things. I think looking at your photos, everything just makes sense together. So you're obviously mindful of adding something that should be there.
Yes.
So yes, more is more, but I've never gained that impression from your photography.
I think it's the Coco Chanel thing. Like Coco Chanel
Yes.
had this thing, like if you walk past the mirror before you leave the house, take away one thing.
Yeah, I think
Could
it's
be that.
Exactly.
Greta's like, let's just add glitter to everything. Like
Yes.
a coat. That's another coat. It's freaking amazing.
Of course, isn't it? It's just, yeah. The obsession with sequence continues and will continue into
I
length
have
of days.
a glitter coat that literally, no matter where I wear, it leaves a trail of glitter everywhere.
Yes,
So
obviously, that's
I
how it
wore it
should
the other
be.
day in my car is still covered in glitter. If I
Yes.
have my camera bag with me, it's covered in glitter. I'm like, yeah,
Welcome to my life.
it's amazing.
Yeah, so your car is a bit of a Twilight vampire, Ben. I like it.
You know, you know, as it
All right,
should
so I'm
be.
just gonna take a second just to quickly read out the comments. So greetings from Randburg. Hello, Andrew. Yolandi.
Hello.
Hey, Yolandi here from Snapshots of Life. Thank you for your time tonight. Fully enjoying this convo tonight. Totally agree with what's been said. Thank you for joining. Absolutely beautiful. I think that was referring to one of your photos. Let's just make it both of yours because all of your photos are very beautiful. When we believe in ourselves, anything is possible, 100%.
So true.
Hi there from Cupano from Bloemfontein, enjoying the conversation. Thank you for joining. I think this is a friend of yours.
Yes.
You're the only
Actually,
pink-haired friend here.
I want to jump in. So one of the reasons why I do fashion photography and why I became so interested in is actually because of my friend Altus. So Altus and I studied together. And this was before, Instagram became a thing and you had like like these parasocial relationships with celebrities and everything. We loved fashion photography, the two of us, and we would, like run to each other, with these editorials and like, look how cool this is. This is amazing. And I just became so inspired by that. So there's this little like hat tip I want to give to my friend Altus for steering me on this ridiculous path, because it's partially because of you. Thanks, dude.
I don't think I've ever seen you without pink hair. Like if you had to dye your hair a different color, it would be a bit
Never.
uncanny valley. I would know,
Yeah,
who's
never.
this person?
Would be
I've
like,
had pink hair for 10 years.
All right, Peter Gravett here. Hi from Joburg. Hand waving. Christopher saying doing things with intention is so important. 100% in media photography. So I'm just rushing through these. Hi there from Pretoria. We are enjoying this conversation. And our first question, Megan, directed to you. Why did you quit motorsport photography? You're so great with that.
so there's kind of two reasons why I kind of moved away from that industry. First reason, and I never want to sound vain, but I kind of outgrew it. I was producing, specifically like the South African industry, I was producing the best work that I could produce. And the people who were buying it, which were the racing drivers, were still comparing it to somebody who had just been at the racetrack. Somebody who was producing sort of the same stuff they'd been producing for 20 years. And that kind of got to a point where you're going, okay, so you're in an industry that's not really appreciating your artistic turn to the images. I mean, the amount of times that I would get asked, oh, why didn't you crop it? Why is the card that size and the frame that size? They didn't appreciate the artistic value that I kind of added to the motorsport images. So it became a case of, why am I carrying on in this industry? Why am I giving up every single weekend to be in this industry where I'm not really being appreciated as an artist? So that was kind of the first reason. And then the second reason is honestly financially. It's just not an industry that's worthwhile, which is ironic based on the amount of money that the guys spend on their cars, but they would rather spend that money on their cars than buy images. So it just became a financial decision as well, where it was going, you know what, I need a bit more of a income that also is not costing me so much in terms of driving to the racetrack, spending 2 days standing outside for 8 hours, shooting images, processing images, sending images out, and getting very few sales.
That's unfortunate. Hopefully you do it in your spare time every now and then.
I do, and I also,
that's
where
yes.
coming out of my workshops now, that's kind of why I started doing the workshops and doing the motorsport workshops specifically. That's where all my workshops kind of started from, was the fact that I am still extremely passionate about it. I'm still extremely passionate about creating motorsport images, creating or trying to shoot as low shutter speeds as possible. But now I can feel that passion a lot more by teaching others and seeing their passion grow and seeing their excitement.
All right. So to carry on, thank you for that quick answer, Megan. So very powerful and valuable insights and knowledge being shared here from Picture This Photography. Your friend pitching again here. Haha, true, Altus. And lastly, from Solomon, thank you so much for the comments, guys. Greeting Solomon from Pretoria. I'm enjoying the show. So, next question was, can you describe a specific photo or a project series, whatever it may be, where your vision was particularly clear? So, something that you had a plan with, and how did you translate that vision onto the photo? So, Greta, I need your help here because I have a bunch of your photos. I need you to point out which one it is.
Okay, let's see. I think the first one I want to talk about is the purple one. I think it's on the very first frame.
Purple, purple, purple.
Yeah, you can't miss it. It is quite purple.
There
we go. That one. There we go. Yeah, so, okay, I want to preface this by saying my favorite thing to answer when people ask me which shoots are my favorites, it's always the difficult ones. The shoots that take the most prep work and planning, the shoots where you have to overcome challenge after challenge on sets, the ones where you have to dig deep and almost like fight yourself to make it work. I know that sounds like, that's not how it's supposed to be, but I kind of find like driving and pushing through the pain, so to speak, is what like really makes a shoot work for me. So I have a background in graphic design.
Yeah.
So naturally, I closely follow Pantone's Color of the Year announcements. And one of them that really inspired me was 2018's Ultraviolet. And the thing that drew me to this was me wanting to use a black light as a light source.
Oh, wow.
So the planning work, it took forever in terms of lighting, prop making, set design, and actually making the lighting work on the day was absolutely hardcore because a black light, I found out, despite being bright in person, is very dim on camera. So I don't know any of you event photographers who can absolutely confirm this, but they do not show up well on camera, especially not if you're working with flash around it. And I'm actually still very proud of the results that I got from this because, as you can see, it even got published. But I do want to say, had it not been for my lighting assistant, Liam, on that day, it just wouldn't have worked. Like, he was a champion throughout the day. And then moving on to the next one is Phoenix. So the one with the silver jumpsuit. Yes,
Did
that
I
one.
show?
There we go.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Yeah, it's from the yes. Yeah, so the mythical creature, just a little bit of background. The mythical creature, the phoenix, is extremely important to me on a personal level because it's something that I tie to my grandfather, who was a very big influence in the reason why I pursued art or any form of art as a career at all. And it features, the theme of the phoenix features a lot in personal projects, and it's even like part of my online gamer tag. Actually, it was a concept that I wanted to try for years, but because of the personal significance of it, I actually just didn't have the guts to get to it. Like I kept on putting it off and thinking whatever I'm coming up with is it just won't do it justice. And then one day I just decided there was a fire in Pringle Bay. Not Pringle Bay, like on the Clarence Drive on the side of the mountain. And I just decided, you know what? I think it's time. It's time to do this. So it's now or never. And the day that I finally did, it was a day that couldn't have gone more off the rails, even if it tried. And it was mostly thanks to the weather. And being a location photographer, obviously, you have to keep the weather in mind. Me living in the Helderberg, we know the wind forecast is almost the most important part of shooting on location in the Helderberg. And yeah, we had the perfect location, but gale force winds that made it very difficult for the makeup artist. Like, the pigment was just flying everywhere and it was wild. And it was also very hot, which wasn't fun for the model, but she was an absolute star throughout everything. So what was very crucial about that shoot, and the previous one as well, was just everyone's willingness to come together to fight the battles with me and to make it work. And interestingly, this shot, while I was editing it, I actually didn't like it at all. I was really not happy with how it came out. But now when I look at it, it's just one of the best ones I've ever done. And I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, it's just the contrast of the outfit versus the foliage, the burnt foliage in the background as well. It creates that interesting juxtapositioning of the phoenix arising from the ashes. That's definitely the
Yep.
impression that I'm getting here, and the outfit was a brilliant choice here. Just not just the color as well, it's just the texturing and the glistening effect of that outfit, obviously in comparison with her background.
And I mean,
It does
obviously,
create
I
a
hate
lot of
sparkle.
narrative. Sorry, say again?
I say, obviously, can you see I hate sparkle? I hate anything sparkly, please. But yeah, like for me also, that was just if you look at the technical aspect of that photo and the previous one as well, color is really important to me. Color palettes are very, very important.
Yeah.
So the ultraviolet shoot was literally put together around a single color, and how I can translate that color into a very somewhat literal way, but also just visually in a way that makes it really impactful. And this one, complementary colors. Color theory
Yes.
is very important.
hmm Yeah, I think we can keep each other busy with hours talking about
Yes.
color theory and
Yes.
whatnot.
Yes,
But
we
I
can.
just to drive back to one of my earlier points. I do study these topics at depth. It's going to help you
Yeah.
so much in terms of building a picture
Mhm.
together. So, if I may ask, why purple?
Because it's just it was the color of the year for Pantone in 2018 was ultraviolet, and I shot this in 2018. And I'm not one that does a Pantone shoot like every year when they make the new announcement. It's just this one somehow just stuck with me because I find I was teaching photography at the time as well, and working with the science side of light was very interesting. So the visible light spectrum and then ultraviolet on the one end and infrared on the other end, I find it very interesting, and I really wanted to experiment with that to kind of see how I can translate that in a visual way and how I can use a black light, because it's an interesting way of lighting, because sometimes lighting is not always just going to be the sun or flash. It's,
Yeah.
you can light with anything, that any light source you can light something with. You can light a photograph with absolutely anything that emits light. And
100%.
that's something I love to investigate.
And just to pop back to this one, I do find the pose very interesting. I have my opinion on it, but I would like to gain your insight first. So, this posing, why was that a direction from your end?
Honestly, I think the model was just trying to keep the garment on in the in the wind. It was probably just an outtake because, again, I mentioned earlier that art does what it wants to do, and you just have to buckle in and, hold on for your life. And I think that's what happened there, because there was an outtake, and I think the model was adjusting the garment. I can't remember, it was a while ago, but more often than not, the happy accidents are the greatest photos that will come from a shoot. The happy accidents, the outtakes.
Sorry, my cat is destroying my house.
Cat life.
We
That's the
we
noise
literally
that
were
you heard.
speaking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Cat life. Amazing.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
with the pose here, it's something I've always talked about when it comes to posing. It's not just what the pose itself, it's before the pose and after the pose. You need to create kind of an action. And
Yeah.
here the action that I see is a kind of that moment before unleashing yourself, like throwing
Yeah.
your arms up and screaming to the heavens. It's kind of
Yep.
like a snake before shedding its skin. It feels a little bit itchy, and you just want to release that old skin and just shout to the heavens, "Here I am." And it
Which
is
is a
very
very
true
Phoenix
to
thing.
it is exactly stole the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
It's a very Phoenix thing, yes.
It is.
All
It's
right.
very Phoenix.
All right.
Yeah, but
Megan, you need to help
yes.
me out here. I need
So
to go
it
back.
is
Did
the
it?
vintage shoot. So go. I think it starts with. There we go. I think it starts with this one. I don't think there's another
Let me
one next
just
to it.
check.
Love these, by the way.
Oh wait, there's
Love
that
them.
one. Thank you.
Love them.
So the story behind this, this is a Victorian house museum that's in Joburg here, and my mom and I went to it. My goodness, probably in 2001, because I hadn't really not 2001, 2001, because I hadn't really started with. I'm trying to think. 2011, not 2001. My goodness, don't mind my brain being a bit wonky. I hadn't really started with photography as of yet. I had this little Mick and Drip point and shoot thing that I was taking photos with then. But it was, I mean, photography for me growing up was a rich man's hobby. It was never a career choice. And it was never something that I had considered going into. So in any case, this museum it is incredible. From the moment that you walk into the door, you literally are taken back into those time periods where it was just phenomenal. So I've kept in contact with the lady who actually runs this place, who has a very English name, Catherine Love. She's phenomenal. She dresses in character. She's actually the lady in these photos. And she dresses in character and takes you through and takes you through the history of how people in the Victorian times would have lived. So from going to that house, I've always gone, oh man, a shoot here would just be amazing. But kind of put it out of my head because it was a time sensitive thing in terms of having the experience to be able to interpret what was in my head into those photos. So just before my brother left for South America, because that's my brother in the photos, we actually went to visit there the one day, and I was like, you know what, let's do it. Let's make the jump again and let's do this photo shoot before he goes, because I think as a male character, he had long hair that he could slick back and he kind of had the whole stern face for it. I thought, okay, let's go ahead and let's do it. So fortunately, I had the location, which was phenomenal. I had my two models, Catherine being one of them. And I mean, like I said, she pretty much lives her character every single day. So she has so many different outfits that she wears. And then fortunately, the outfit that she picked for my brother fitted him perfectly. So then it was a case of just going through the house, chatting to her as we went through the different locations. So you can actually scroll through the photos if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
That. Going through the different locations and kind of portraying what would happen. Although for this shot, she was actually killing herself laughing because she was like, as a lady in the house, a lady would never lean, ever. But I wanted to kind of create a bit more of a like subdued, a bit more of a typical board moment in these big fancy houses. So it was phenomenal. You can go to the next one for me. Going through these locations and also using what the specific rooms, what the specific locations would have been used for. So this room would have been like a knitting room, would have been where the ladies came and had their tea. So here she's just, having one of those moments. But I think it was also an outtake image, because I've got quite a few where she's looking straight at the camera and only one where she's kind of looking out the window. And I just absolutely loved the light that was coming in through that window.
There's also a case of spotting the light as well, finding the light. And this is a beautiful example of it as well. Just moving around, finding different locations. And I think to your point that you mentioned right at the beginning, it's about how you see the world around you, being observant and putting all of these elements together. And it's beautifully captured by this series. I'm very impressed by it.
Thank you. I think as photographers, it's very easy for us to see the bigger scheme, the bigger picture in a lot of things. I think we're all obsessed with having the right light. Oh, it needs to be sunset. It needs to be this. It needs to be that. But just stop sometimes and go, oh, okay, that could work. Look what's around you. Look what the light, what every opportunity has in store for you.
Yeah, photography is 90% observing. It's the art of observation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, here I wanted to create kind of a subdued, because the ladies would have generally been sat there having their dinner or waiting for their dinner. And I mean, if you look at history in Victorian times, there wasn't many images of them smiling. It wasn't a thing that people did. So she was the perfect model. She was absolutely phenomenal to photograph.
Yeah, and just keeping things time accurate, as you said. And it is an interesting point about old-fashioned photos, people not smiling. I think there was a joke about it in a movie, I can't remember. But you had to keep the shutter open for like 30 seconds, and it would be crazy to smile for 30 seconds. So just in terms of your concept here, it's a very, very small detail, but it just adds to the picture. It just makes things work.
But again, it's having the right team. Greta has mentioned that a few times, of having the right team with you. So having Catherine with us on the shoot, being able to tell us what would be the normal interaction with each photo, what would be the normal pose, was phenomenal, that you could kind of keep it a little bit historically accurate.
100%. Well done with these images. Very, very good.
Absolutely.
All right. So I think my turn. It's right at the end. All right, so photo shoot from many, many years ago, probably 8 years ago or something. So let me first start off by saying this was kind of a happy accident of things coming together. So it was just meant to be, um, just for lack of a better term, just a boudoir-ish kind of photo shoot, but the poses and things just didn't, it wasn't magical enough. So I took off my leather jacket. So that's the leather jacket that you see here. One of my favorite leather jackets was stolen a year later. I was quite sad about that.
Oh no.
But here immediately, and we made the point of being observant, I just saw something happening in front of me. So the concept I thought of was not being comfortable in your skin and wanting to shed that skin like a snake. And with her jacket being 10 sizes too big for her, and also maybe symbolically a bit of a masculine thing as well, just her kind of getting out of this leather jacket, just escaping this leather jacket. That was kind of the concept that drove me in terms of the poses and everything here. So a lot of movement, a lot of upward movement, and kind of the jacket just falling into the background. So the symbolism here is just, with that oversized, very heavy thing that is on you that you just want to get out of. And, we can talk about masculinity and femininity here as well, but here the symbol of masculinity was that of the leather jacket, and that in contrast with the lacy outfit. Just to get back to my earlier point, this was just a happy accident, and the puzzle pieces just fell together. So what was intended to be just a boudoir shoot essentially became a lot more than that. So it's always interesting looking back at these moments and paying attention. Things can happen, and all of the puzzle pieces will fall into place.
But it's incredible as photographers that we can put a lot of prep into shoots. We can plan everything out, plan every single aspect. But there will always be those moments that are unplanned, unexpected. But again, it's about capitalizing on them.
That's why I keep saying the art is going to do, it has a mind of its own. It's going to do what it's going to do.
I absolutely love that.
100%. So I think we can put the slideshow away for now. We have a couple more questions. We're like an hour and 12 minutes in. Gosh,
Oh my
we've been
goodness.
having a ball of a time.
Absolutely.
All right. So how do you handle creative blocks or periods of what I like to refer to as lighter's block? So from a photographer's point of view, it's not writer's block, it's lighter's block. And how do you overcome these black bits of not being inspired? How do you get yourself out of that black hole? So I think it's Meghan's turn this time to go first.
All right. So I generally, like, if I've had a shoot and I kind of have a black hole after a shoot, generally I will come home, I will load the photos onto my computer, and then I will go, oh, look, there's a game reserve that needs to be visited, and bugger off for the day.
Yep.
Run away from it, basically. So especially after a shoot, I kind of look through it and I can see every single flaw. I can see every single thing that I didn't do properly. My lights in the shot. Why didn't I move my light? Why didn't I concentrate on the pose? Why didn't I? That's kind of one of my biggest things, is having after a shoot. During a shoot, I think because you're a full-time, or when you're a full-time photographer, you don't kind of have so much of a leeway. You don't kind of have that opportunity of going, oh, you know what, today's shoot didn't work, I'm just not going to do it. There are days where you are not in the mood to shoot. You have a headache, you are not feeling well, you really just don't have what it needs to do that shoot. But you know that you have to do it. A friend of mine always says it's the difference kind of between a hobbyist or somebody who does it on the side versus a professional photographer who does it full time, who's its bread and butter, is that exact thing of being able to push past when you're not feeling it. For me, though, there's days where I don't want to shoot. There's days where I produce the worst stuff on earth, but it's about moving past them, and then kind of coming back to your work and realizing, damn, it's actually good. The images I shot 2 years ago. Because it was a free shoot, to be honest, I only edited them about 2 weeks ago. And I came back to them and literally was like, why didn't I edit these straight after the shoot? I mean, this is amazing. This is really some of my best work I've ever produced. And the only thing that I could think of is we keep referring back to that photographer, who that photographer was a few years ago. That photographer that I was 2 years ago, I wasn't ready to kind of edit and to process the way that I wanted the images to look.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's some days it's about accepting that we all have bad days, and if we can kind of stop and not have to push through them, then great. But then it's also about knowing and understanding that some days you have to push through them.
Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta dig deep and do the thing.
Exactly.
Dig your heels in, yes.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
Mike, to you.
Yeah, I mean, Megan, you mentioned something that I actually do exactly the same. There's two things. While I'm shooting, I have no idea what I shoot. It's just, and like, it sounds weird to say, like, it's not like I'm on autopilot, not paying attention, but there's so much information that processes through your head while you're shooting that I only see what I did properly when I load them onto the computer. And then usually what I do, I just leave it. I'm like, okay, you know what? I shot today, I'll start editing tomorrow. I'm not, usually what I do is I'll like edit one or two, like a test edit to see where I want to go with it. And if I like it, I'll just send it to the team. Like, here's a sneak peek. Okay, bye, I'm going to bed. You know? So I like to have it, if possible, if it's not a very tight deadline, if possible, I like to let it rest or let it marinate, so to speak. But I routinely try to remind myself that growth is uncomfortable. And the creative block and the imposter syndrome are mostly just times of growth. And it means you're making space to level up. That's something that I kind of carry with myself, because sometimes you go through like a month or 2 or 3 or 6, you know, where you just go, nothing I'm creating feels like myself. Nothing I'm creating is making me happy. But at the end of it, it's just, you go through the motions and you just have to trust the process and trust that it is in your best interest, because when you come out of that, you know, out of that ebb, then you actually just realize, you know, this, I had to go through this because I had to learn this so I can get to a place of creating the work once again that makes me proud, that I want to put out there. And also, if you think about it in terms of like film photography, I started on film photography when I was a student, and you had 24 frames on a roll of film, and I think 24 frames, and I think 36 on the bigger rolls. I think, I can't remember, it was quite a couple of years ago. And you had to bank on maybe one of them being usable, you know, like. And I do want to say that there is a lot of pressure on photographers today to deliver so many amazing photos per photo shoot, you know, for a client, because, you know, it's digital, it's accessible, it's easy. But it's not that game anymore where you can just bank on 1 or 2 out of a shoot, you know. If you're shooting for a client, if you're shooting for me, like when I shoot for designers, obviously shooting catalogs, things like that, the photos need to be usable. So there's also that kind of thing where you have to understand the pressure that's on us as photographers, in, you know, career photographers in the industry is a lot high. Like, it's, in a way, it's a lot higher than it used to be. So just being gentle with yourself and understanding, you know, that you're going through a hard time with your work. It's the growth stage, and it needs to happen. It's the growing pains.
It'll get better. That's
Yeah.
the key.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, it
You
will
still
get
have
better.
to push through it. You can't just kind of
Push
slide
through the
back and
pain.
go, I'm just going to climb into the hole today.
You can't. You absolutely can't. But also experience helps with that, because if you get to a day where, you know, listen, I'm not feeling it today, like, even if you go back to the tried and tested things and you know that this is what you can do to make the shoot work, great stuff, because you do get there eventually. You get to that point where you can fall back on things that you know will make this work despite you not being at your best level. So keep at it.
Yeah.
It's just experience and practice.
Now, kind of on topic and good timing as well. You may see here my battery's going empty. So if you see me going dark, rest assured I will put in the next battery. So if I do disappear for a moment or two, just give me a couple of minutes. But I think on topic, listen to your body. Like if you do feel drained, if you do feel empty, if you do feel that lack of inspiration, like actually listen to your body, listen to your mind. Something may
Yeah.
be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, this is to me always helpful is to talk about it. I think us talking about these things have been very nurturing. Just to listen to other perspectives and just to let out these things can be incredibly helpful just to orientate yourself again. So a second person's opinion. I also like to say, talk to people who are not photographers. I mean, if you talk to a photographer, they're going to talk about f-stops and ice, blah, 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 all of the technical aspects. But my favorite person, obviously, to talk to is my fiance. And she is a photographer, but just to gain a different insight outside of the world of photography.
And on the topic of on the topic of listening to your body, sorry, like look after your health, you guys. Injuries, like things like carpal tunnel, all of those things. I fell on a photo shoot last year and my kneecap smashed onto a rock on the beach. It was incredibly painful, but I got home. I finished the shoot, obviously, because Grethe is not that responsible. I finished the shoot. I got back home, made an appointment to go and see my GP. So if it's accessible to you, if it's possible, just make sure that you don't push through the pain in a literal sense where it'll hurt you along the line. Look after your back, your knees, your joints. This is a very 36-year-old thing to say. But we've been doing this for a while.
I think it hits over 30. Like the moment that you hit 30, all of those aspects just kind of die. They're just like, nope, you're not okay anymore.
You're not invincible.
You don't even need to fall over. It's just like sleeping wrong on a pillow. Like the pillow will punish you for weeks.
Exactly. You just turn your head too fast and you're like,
But on that topic as well of taking care of yourself, understanding that just because a door is open doesn't mean it's your specific door. Doesn't mean that door is yours.
Yes.
So the cruise liner that I just worked on, health-wise, my health crashed on board. Literally, we were doing like 12, 13-hour days, 7 days a week for 6 months. It was hectic. I did over 100 portrait or couple shoots while on board. So in terms of creativity, like you said, there are days where experience will get you to the point that you can kind of go into a bit of autopilot. Okay, I know I can produce these results and that's fine. But when this company then approached me again, they wanted me to leave literally next week to head out on another 6-month contract. I decided that it wasn't for me because of my health, because of what I experienced on the ship, and just the fact that my body crashed. My body did not enjoy the environment that I was in. So it kind of hurts a little bit based on the fact that the ship was now going to Athens and Greece and just some of the most incredible locations. But understanding your limits within your body, understanding how that will affect your future, but then also understanding that just because a door is open doesn't mean it is your door.
Know when to say no.
Exactly.
100%,
yeah.
And I think that just plays into listening to your body, not just from a physical, but on a mental health point of view as well.
Absolutely.
And as I said, community here is important, be it friends and family, even people outside of the world of photography. Just get it out there. You're not an island. The more you pursue this journey by yourself, the more you're just going to put pressure on yourself. And you may not know exactly what the problem may be. It may require somebody else to say, hey, X, Y, and Z reasons. Let's talk about it. So don't punish yourself. Don't be a sucker for self-punishment. Get it out there, talk about it. And this is exactly what it needs to be for world of creativity. It ought to be a community. If you need to reach out, by all means do that. It may just be the reason why you're feeling this creative rut. But I think that's it's a big topic, that one. But
it is, we can continue. We can continue,
All right. So I have other questions here, but I think we did cover a lot of it. But one of particular interest to mine is that of light. So when creating a vision, how much does light play its part there? So maybe you can talk about the different qualities of light. How do you create light out of nothing? Where do you find a light? Do you want to make use of artificial light or natural light? I think, Grethe, you are a great exponent of hard light. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? And also the reasons why?
Okay, so light is literally everything to me for photography, absolutely everything. So I'm constantly trying to learn more about it, trying to bend it to my will, so to speak. It sounds a little bit X-Men of me, but I mean,
It's a good
so
example out there.
absolutely. So
Mm,
my work is first and foremost about lighting in a creative and captivating way. How can I push the boundaries of my own skill and understanding of light? It's kind of a beast that'll never be tamed, and I find that super exhilarating. And as I've said earlier, like absolutely anything that emits light is a light source.
mm,
Anything from your phone flash to, the ultimate free light, aka the sky laser, the sun.
mhm,
And for me, like working with the sun is very, it's something. Number one, I'm also one of, let me put it this way, I'm one of those people, if someone says there's something difficult or it can't be done, I'm like, watch me.
Mm.
mm,
So when I was studying, like obviously the rule that you hear all the time is don't shoot in direct sunlight, don't shoot in the middle of the day, that kind of thing. And I'm like, wait a minute, but what if you do?
mm,
And I started this, I think, in my second or third year of studying. I started just doing that. So I do want to give a very big shout out to my sister-in-law. So my sister-in-law and I literally, she did makeup. She studied a course in makeup at the time, and she also modeled for most of my photo shoots. And the two of us, we investigated every single concept, any idea, you name a theme, we shot it. Me with my little 400D, and I had a I had one of those car windshield things as a reflector. And
mhm,
that's where I realized like you can manipulate light, natural light, and work with it. And I just fell in love with really hard, direct, contrasty light. And I'd like to think that, the boldness that is me, I mean, the sequins and the pink hair and everything, I think that kind of reflects in my work with the high contrast and the bright colors and, those kind
mhm.
of things, that I just throw in that I think makes my work my own. But it's just, yeah, hard light is just something that I saw as the biggest challenge at the beginning of my career. And for me, challenges, as I said, the difficult shoots are my favorite ones.
Mhm.
You just go for the challenge and you try to overcome it. And I've just fallen in love with it. And it's free. It's the free light source. It's the sky
Mm,
laser. So I just say like half my shoots are lit by lasers.
mm,
You don't have to worry about charging batteries with load shedding.
mm,
Exactly. But also it's unpredictable. It's
Yeah.
unpredictable in a way that
mm,
I like working with, and I like, you know, messing around with it, because I think when a lot of photographers think of natural light photography, they think of shooting in the shade, shooting at sunset,
yeah.
all of those things.
Kind of avoiding the light.
Yeah, which is absolutely fabulous. And the results is I've seen, there's a couple of, especially some of the wedding photographers, including the photographer that shot our wedding, was absolutely like the work that they do with natural light is absolutely
Mm,
unbelievable. But for me, natural light, it's kind of like the hard light, the direct sunlight is kind of the one that people do not talk about. And I
mm.
don't know why, because I feel people need to embrace it a little bit more and challenge themselves and go for it and see what they can make work with it, because there's
100% yes.
infinite possibilities with it.
It'll make you a better photographer working with the
Yes,
difficult light. That
Yes,
when
yes,
you get the
100%.
good light, that like you'll know what to do with the
yeah,
really good light. Yeah, absolutely.
exactly. And work with reflections, work with,
Mm,
study light in terms of how it behaves, reflections, refraction, where it casts shadows, negative space, all of those things.
mm,
Go and read up about that and see, learn to look at light and not just photograph it. So if it's golden hour, just look around, like see, again, observation. Photography is the art of observation more than it is, clicking buttons. I always like joke and say like I'm just here to click the buttons because I just oversimplify it. But it's just learn to look at light and just learn how to, appreciate what you see and see how can I apply this in a way
yeah.
creatively that can, elevate my work, or at least just make it interesting for myself to learn from.
I can't recall if we mentioned this word already, that of intuition. So somebody a while ago asked me, how would you define an African photo? It got me thinking. So I think in Africa, we have a lot of hard light. Like we don't have
Yes.
the soft gray light that the Europeans or
Mm-mm.
Canadians, etc.,
Mm-mm.
have. So if you want to create something that is intuitive, lighting that you're used to seeing in the real world outside, you kind of have to exploit it, kind of embrace it, as you say. And so to kind of
Yeah.
make use of that hard light will create something that just clicks within the local audience immediately.
Yeah. Hard,
So by
warm light.
yeah, hard warm lights and spectacular
Mm.
colors and vibrant colors as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just intuition playing its part here, and lighting has a big role there to play as well. We're just used to seeing light in a certain way, and learning how to recreate it and to
Mm-mm.
mold it and to reshape it, etc. Just
Yeah, totally.
very important when it comes to photography.
Funny you should say that. Someone actually said, like, your work is very, very South African in terms of the way that it looks because of, naturally the light in here in South Africa is a lot more warm than it is, as you've mentioned, overseas, which actually makes for difficult white balance control on our cameras, actually, because they're all manufactured in the Northern Hemisphere. So daylight color balance is different there than it is here. So we need to do a little bit more correction if you want a very, very neutral photo. But I actually don't think we should see that as a limitation. We should see that as a uniqueness that we need to actually embrace. So, so as to put our unique South African art and, just to put that into the world so people can see South Africa from an artistic perspective that is not just, the cliche stock photography of, whatever you see if you think of the country.
Yeah.
Megan, mic onto you. To what extent does light play a role in creating one's vision?
Well, I'll be 100% honest with you. Listening to you guys talk about light and talking about how you've studied it, how you like the spectrums and all that, I kind of sit here and I'm like, I'm going to just crawl under the table right now and be like, because A, I have a heck of a lot to learn, and B, I wing it on most shoots. Most shoots, I don't have a specific plan going into it, unless it's like the house shoot was kind of a specific. But like, to give you an example, Friday I'm going out with two of my friends to take photos. There's not much more to it than just going to take photos. And with light, I mean, light is kind of the key with photography. It's the key with creating portraits as well, creating awesome portraits. And for me, it's more about winging it. It's about getting to a location and going, okay, this is what I have to work with. This is what I need to kind of figure out. This is what light source I'm going to use. Whether it's, I've got the massive reflective umbrella thing. Conrad, you know which one I'm talking about. I think it's the 120 centimeter one. It's the really massive one. So it's like, I figured that is actually a decent light to use outside, because it gives such a big light source, versus inside where I'll use my umbrella softbox, my reflective umbrella softbox, all kind of basic stuff. But that's kind of the light that I then use. And like I said, for me, it's more about winging it. It's about getting to a shoot and going, oh, okay, the sun's really pretty there. I'm going to try some natural light. Okay, this spot works really well. But this is, again, where I realize I'm not a technical photographer. The more technical it is, the more I run away. The more I'm like, this confuses my brain. No, stop.
Well, let me rest assured, I think there are many technical photographers out there who would be very jealous of your work in terms of how you see light and how you feel light. One can understand all of these little, technical tidbits, inverse square law, f-stop rating, all of the technical jazz when it comes to photography. There's a big difference between that and actually applying it and feeling it and seeing it. This is where you do an excellent job, Megan. So the technical bits,
Agreed.
I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson who said something about science and art. Like there's a middle ground there to be found somewhere. So one can understand the technical, sciencey bits about something, but if you're not feeling it, it's just not there. And I think he made reference to Vincent van Gogh's Starry Nights. Like him as an astrophysicist, that's a particular interest to him. But he got a feeling out of looking at the artistic impression of Vincent van Gogh's work. So yes, you can argue and say a pistachio wouldn't properly align. This is not how big they're supposed to be, X, Y, and Z. But it's all about feeling as well.
Yes.
And that's the stuff that ought to resonate with every photographer. It's that feeling of light and what it represents to you, metaphorically, poetically speaking, etc. So the science can take you as far as whatever, right? But I think people can get kind of lost in there as well, kind of a bit nerdy.
Yes.
It's one thing knowing the equations and the numbers and what things, but if you're just not applying it, if you're not feeling it, it's kind of nonsensical at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
I very much feel it more than anything.
100%, yes.
It's like you'll get somewhere and you'll immediately see what's presented in front of you, and it just like it pops out to you. It's like somebody's walking around with a highlighter going, "This will look amazing. This will look amazing. Why don't you try this?" And I think, again, that comes with time. It comes with developing your eye and it just experience, just kind of also letting your brain kind of soak up that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I don't think we can talk about vision without talking about light. So this is a particular thing that does interest me. And this is an obsession of mine, working with artificial lighting. So I'm on the opposite page as how Greta started off. My camera that I started with, terrible camera, just couldn't do low light photography whatsoever. As soon as you went above ISO 200, the image was unusable. So I was forced into the world of using flashes, off-camera flash in particular. It wasn't a case of this is what I want to do. It's a case of needing to do this. Otherwise, I couldn't be taking photos. So I started off with wedding photography. So obviously being in a reception, being within a room, if it's low lights, I just had to jump into the world of using lights. And the interesting thing about lighting was the angles, the modification of it, shaping it, the quality of light, and relating that to something poetic as well. So we can talk about Rembrandt lighting, butterfly lighting, all of these lighting patterns. We can also talk about hard lighting and soft lighting, how to create that, definitely get a handle on those things, but translate it into something poetic, something storytelling based. So what does it feel like? So hard light. What feelings do you get when you see hard light? Grethe made mention of boldness, making a statement. It's 100% true. When you're using soft light, you want to use it on a person who has a soft nature, like a soft personality. Like find something story related when you study all of these nitty-gritties about light. Something I said way at the beginning, don't just apply rules, don't just learn rules. I don't like the term rules of photography whatsoever. Instead, learn principles from a storyteller's point of view. So once you package all of these little details, how to implement light, how to modify light, attach it to something poetic. Like find some poetic meaning from it, and from there also make it personal. Find something that resonates with you. Grete has her hard lighting. That's very much her world, very much her style, and it does come from within. And to all photographers watching out there, it's going to happen to you as well. There's going to be that one quality, that combination, that special type of light that's just going to attach to you, and you're just going to fall in love with it. And it's going to be something that you're going to use over and over again, and it's going to make you or define that style that is uniquely you.
The thing is, your style is literally there from the beginning of your photographic journey. You basically just have to keep polishing that diamond.
Yes.
You just 100%. Have to keep at it.
But never stop growing. Never stop polishing it. You'll learn. And you can learn from people who have just started in their photographic career, and you can learn from people who have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years. Just be open to that learning. Always be humble and accept that you can learn.
All right, so I have one last question to ask. I actually want to avoid my battery dying on me, and we are an hour and 40 minutes in. It's been a very fun chat. I'm just flew.
Absolutely, I love it.
I think last question. I think it's a two-parter, so I'm lying. So it's a question and a follow-up question. So can you share any tips or exercises for photographers who are struggling to articulate their vision? And just broadly speaking, what advice would you give new photographers out there? So I don't know who's going first this time. I forgot.
I think
Meghan.
It's Grethe.
No, it's actually you.
Is it me?
Yes, it's you.
Hi. Okay. So we spoke about just shooting. We spoke about the fact that a lot of the time you find your style and you develop and you work on your style through shooting. And I think that is key more than anything. Just shoot. Whatever. Just shoot. So being a photographer that kind of shoots multiple genres or different genres, you can learn kind of different things from each genre. I'm just thinking back to now us talking about light, how with motorsport photography, I was very much like Greta, who would be like, okay, you can't shoot directly into the light. And I'd be like, watch me, let's try this. That was kind of
It's
the
a good
way.
motivator.
It is. It's a very good motivator. And it sometimes failed. It sometimes was the worst photo you ever took. And you were like, okay, now I understand why I was recommended to not do that. But you still went and put yourself out there. So just the shooting and carry on shooting and being open to ideas, open to opportunities, not kind of getting set in one specific mold, not getting set in one specific light source. So when I jumped onto the ship now and I didn't have my big lights and my big soft boxes, I was like, okay, so I tried shooting natural light and initially failed at it, and then kind of got a bit more used to it because everything was downlighting on the ship. So you get these heavy, ugly shadows here, and it was just horrible. But then adapting your style to the environment that you're in helps you to then progress and to learn. Also, don't lose your passion on the bad days. We spoke about the fact that you'll have weeks where you can go through and not being enjoying what you're shooting. Don't lose the passion that goes with that just because you're having a bad moment. But then also, like I said earlier, identify what you like from your photos, from other people's photos. Identify the factors that you feel proud of, and then go, okay, you know what? I'm really proud of this aspect, but maybe I can try this next time, or maybe I should do this next time. So just shoot, carry on shooting, and shoot as much as possible. Pick your camera up every single day, whether it be to go and walk around the garden and try and find bugs, whether it be street photography, which is quite tricky here because of safety and all that jazz, but just constantly also learn, constantly talk to people, listen to other photographers.
Yes.
Those are all aspects that you can do. And then for beginner photographers, my goodness, same thing, same principle. Just shoot and never listen to what other people say. Never listen to, well, okay, no, that's contradictory statement. Listen to what other photographers say, but take what you can learn from it and ignore the criticism. So when I started with photography, I had my Nikon D3100 and my 1855, and I'll never forget, Conrad, with you talking about low or high ISOs. There was an event at Swartkops that I had my media accreditation, and I literally was standing at the side of the racetrack, and with the D3100, you couldn't push it past 800. Even at 800, it was grainy. And we've lost him. Oh, no.
All right, so I'm still here. You just can't
you're
see
still
me.
here. You've just lost your camera. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can't skinner about me when I'm missing.
Darn
I'm still
it.
here.
So when I stepped foot onto the track, the photographers all looked at my kit camera and kit lens, and they were like, oh, you can't shoot a drifting event with very low light at that. And I was like, I'm going to try. I didn't get great photos. I didn't get anything that was like, wow, out of this world. But I learned, about my camera and about its flaws or its capability, knowing what your camera gear or your gear's capability is, but then also constantly ignoring the fact that everybody out there is going to try and get you to buy new gear. You need a new lens, you need a new light, you need this. Learning how to shoot with what you have, whether it's just a camera and a lens, will help you go a heck of a lot faster than going out and spending a lot of money at a shop and buying the best. And I shouldn't be saying that on a CameraStuff advert. I mean, to talk, but
that's fine. We like it.
But it's about using what you have and using that to develop your style as a photographer versus relying on constantly getting the best and newest gear.
Yeah. And to add to that, which is just my bit as well, is me personally, I've stopped shooting and drawing as well for likes on social media.
Yes.
Yeah.
Social media has just turned art and photography into content, and everyone's fighting for the top spot, which is at best exhausting and at worst kind of messed up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw this in here as well, and a lot of people may disagree with me, but AI is also something that really irritates and concerns me, because despite everyone's cries to embrace it, there's absolutely no ethical way of doing so.
Yeah.
So even like there's always going to be an artist or a photographer that's being stolen from.
Yep.
So it's just something that, don't try and hide behind it. Like, even if it's just to show an idea, like, just try to find ways, to not look at those things, and try to build your identity around artificial imagery. The absolute best advice I can give is just to try and tune out the internet, create for yourself and the people who pay your bills.
Yes.
That's
Those are important.
Yeah, sometimes there's going to be the fun, enriching project, and sometimes there's going to be the bread and butter work. And at the end of the day, if you bring your authentic self to it, you're going to stand out no matter what. Every single famous photographer you love, they are famous and they're well known because of being themselves and creating for themselves.
100%.
And yeah, like, just look critically at your work, dissect it, investigate your body of work, and see which themes are consistent across it. And you'll just find yourself in ways you didn't even know existed.
100%. Yeah, I think as a photographer, there's a temptation to kind of hide behind a camera. That's probably a reason why we got into photography in the first place. I don't want to be the one in the photos. I want to, let me take the photos instead.
Absolutely.
So I think instead of hiding behind a camera, the camera is now your tool to express yourself and to express the world around you. So in finding your own voice in the industry, just to touch on what Greta said, you're special, you're unique, you're an individual. You have something to tell the world. Announce yourself, introduce yourself to the world. Use this medium to join the conversation and to make a statement. This idea of hiding and wanting to impress people, doing it for other motivators, it's just going to catch you offside eventually down a pipeline. So in finding your voice, we spoke about vision, we spoke about style. Getting yourself heard, not being afraid to say something. I think that is paramount as your journey, or as a photographer going forward in your journey. So that would just be my advice to new aspiring photographers. Don't be afraid to say something. Yes, there is a lot of antagonizing forces out there, and yes, we're going to meet these things head on. In fact, welcome the challenge. Things are going to happen. Don't hide. Like, be brave. And the world needs individuality.
And the world needs your art.
Yes.
And the world needs your art, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that is my closing statement. There's a lot to be said about you, and specifically talking to everybody watching after the fact as well. As a photographer, announce yourself, make yourself heard. You are special, and we love having you around. Please share your stories and make sure that it is uniquely you. We'd love to hear about it. We'd love to see it.
Take up space. Take up your space.
And embrace who you are as an artist.
Yes. Believe in your vision.
So I think with that, we've come to a close. I don't see any questions, which means we did a spectacular job explaining everything, so nobody out there is get confused. So
hopefully we've been able to motivate some people and inspire. That's the biggest
I think that's 100%. I'm feeling inspired and motivated. The two of you have been absolutely fantastic. I've learned a great deal. It was fun talking to you, gaining all of your insights, and thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and insights. It's been a spectacular talk, and hopefully people watching out there have learned a lot as well. So just as a reminder, if you have joined late, you can catch it from the beginning on our YouTube channel. So you can watch the entire episode. So I don't know if any of you have any shout outs or closing statements to make.
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity. It's phenomenal to be able to share a bit of knowledge. I mean, when I started, I was terrified, utterly terrified. First camera show, photographic show I ever went to, I cried when I got home because it was all about money and care and this and that. And my brain was like, oh my word. And through the years, it's been difficult. It's been a challenge. It's been a growth. And I mean, COVID and this and that. And but it's all a journey. And it's all about allowing those journeys and allowing those things to mold you and guide you into who you are and into what art you want to produce.
Something I've learned from gaming is that if you encounter enemies, you're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. If you hear the boss music.
The boss music pumping.
If you hear the boss music, then you're on the right track. Absolutely. But yeah, thank you so much for having us. I really appreciate it. And thank you to CameraStuff for all of the things you guys have been doing for the community over the years as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, the support you guys have given us, it's just like from us professionals to beginners to anyone. And I love seeing in your groups, I love seeing that there's no question too small. Like everyone, you're always jumping in. Thank you so much, because you guys are a backbone of the South African industry, and
Well,
we
thank
really
you. Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
saying that. It's very important to us. Also, just from a personal, it's all fun promoting camera stuff, but it is one of our philosophies is to nurture the industry from the ground up, and happy industry,
Yeah.
happy clients. So somewhere down the process, people may buy equipment, but it's all about
Yeah.
cultivating and taking care of people. So if we have a small part to play in that, hopefully we can play our role.
I
But
mean,
I
my
love the
very
fact that you
first.
guys. Sorry,
Uh,
Greta.
no.
I love the fact that you guys are also sharing local artists. You're sharing so many of the different
Yeah.
photographers, no matter what stage they are in their career. You're giving them a
Yes.
platform to be seen
Yes.
by other photographers as well. That I think
Yeah.
is fantastic and needs to happen a heck of a lot more.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thanks for having us. It's been absolutely amazing.
All right.
Absolutely amazing. It's always an honor to be a part of these talks. I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
It's really great.
Very much so.
So I think with that, it's going to be a good night from us. So thank you for the kind
Yes.
words at the end. Always struggle with compliments. So I'm just gonna say thank you very much. But yeah,
Ron!
I really do appreciate it. So I think from that, Conrad, on behalf of CameraStuff, Greta and Megan, thank you again for joining. To everybody out there watching, we bid you a very fine night and a good night as well. Enjoy the rest of your week, and hopefully you can be inspired and find your vision going forward as well. So from my side,